Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Sit back and listen to interviews, discussion about books, and anything else literary. There's always something or someone new on the show. Good evening, listeners, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Behind the books, honest voices, real stories. I'm Amy Shannon, and each episode brings you heartfelt conversations with the storytellers behind the stories, authors, publishers, and creatives who shape the literary world. And every second Sunday, join me for story time, where tales come alive for all ages. So let's turn the page together. Today, we have an author with us. Thank you for joining us. And will you please introduce yourself and let people know how they can contact you or find your books?
Hi. Thank you, Amy. My name is Pamela Waggoner Good. And you can find my book on my website, which is the same as PamelaWaggonerGood.com. And you can also find me on my author page on Facebook. And then I have another Facebook page. So I'm easily available on those. You can reach out to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and you can get my book there or on my website.
Okay. And that information will be put in the description of this episode when it goes live, just so people can access it easily. So, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your book?
Well, my book came about, like many people, this was not on my radar to do, but my whole life has not been on my radar. And so I just kind of would flow through life. And I came about in a very bad time in my life. And in my healing process, I had gone to a women's retreat. And they were talking about their different life stories and how they came about to meet Jesus and how they healed. And so as I was sitting there, I just felt this overwhelming voice tell me, this is what you do. This is what you need to do. You share your story in a book and talk on it. And so I'm like, well, this is the weirdest conversation. I don't think so. I can't write a book. I mean, I was in special reading a lot of my life in school, and people still correct me on pronouncing words. So I thought, yeah, that's not going to happen. But, and it just kept edging at me as I was trying to go through my different life cycles, which were very many. And so, my book came about from that. I started going and listening to messages, and eventually I started journaling. And I thought, okay, it's still here. I guess this is what I should do. And my goal with my book was to inspire others, because it took me so long in life to understand that there was a really great life out there, and I was made for more, like all of us are, right? And I felt it just took me so long to get there. I lived in the dark in just survival mode. So you really don't dream. You really don't think, oh, I want to do this. I'm going to try to do this. I just did what came at me, and I just worked, and everything that just kept coming at me is what I did just to survive in life. And even though I thought I was living, I wasn't. So my book came about when I wanted to write this to share with my family so they understood my life as a young child and my siblings. I wanted all of our nephews and nieces to understand where we were coming from in our young adult life, because it was tough growing up with a mother who had a mental illness. And that book starts out with that, how my life fell apart because I did not know how to work through the trauma of my childhood. And I wanted others to be able to do that way early in life. So if you can imagine, I always have my audiences just close their eyes and listen to me start off by saying I was a 4-year-old child navigating life with a beautiful mind mother who was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. And my siblings and I had to learn to do life on our own. Our dad was around working 2 or 3 jobs, but we just pretty much fed ourselves, ran over to our grandma's every now and then across the street, and then just did what we had to do. Schoolwork. We all started working really young. And so I asked people to just imagine this 4-year-old girl listening to her mother talk, and you can't understand a word she's saying, and she's talking to someone out the window across the street. And imagine this little girl at 4, her little young brother is crying because he's hungry, and he's little, and I'm only 4. My sister is only 5, and our mother's smoking cigarettes, angry, talking across the street and not paying attention and not feeding my brother. I didn't know how to feed him. And he was crying and crying. And then imagine this little 5-year-old girl coming home one day from school and finding her mom with a broken arm and 2 black eyes. And then imagine this little 6-year-old girl now going to the hospital, having to be put to sleep and having 6 decayed, poisonous teeth taken out of her because she didn't have good nutrition or good hygiene, dental hygiene for her teeth. And then I asked them to take a deep breath and open their eyes and look up here on the stage and see that same little girl living now, thriving in life and living the life God created for her. So my book takes you on that journey of how I got there and what I went through and the things I did to try to survive and finally learning to thrive in life. And my goal is for others to be able to read some of those messages in the book and understand what they can do at a much younger time in their life and to not carry the trauma, the strongholds that were put on me about I wasn't good enough, I'm not worthy, I can't do this, and the guilt, I had a root of rejection inside me that was just deep. And those things will eventually carry over to the people you love, and especially to your children. And so I want to encourage people by reading this is please look at yourself, take a deep look at yourself and get rid of those so you can have a full life as we are made for more.
Did your mother ever receive proper health care?
She did. And that was the other thing, that my father was always working. That's why he wasn't around a lot. He was always working because he was trying to pay for some care for her. He actually went bankrupt trying to do it. And he just got exhausted and finally she got so bad, he had to send her away and go live with her family in California because she got violent. And so he wanted us out of the house, and he tried. She had ECT, which is the electrical shock treatment. Mm-hmm. And later in his life, he realized that sometimes isn't the best thing, but he didn't know, and he just listened to what the doctors said, right?
Right, yeah.
And in my research, I learned so much more about schizophrenia and the different stages and the love and patience and the safety they need, which my dad didn't understand. He was trying to raise 4 babies. My brother was a little older. He was 9 when this happened to my mom, but the rest of us were pretty young. And, there was a judge in town thought maybe it was time that he'd take us away and put us in different homes. But that was a big fight and battle for my dad. And he says, no way are you taking my kids. And, he had friends and family that when she was in the hospital, when we were very little, he would, take us over to their house for a week. But he tried to get her treatment several times. And
Mm.
even later in life, I had to put her back in the hospital. So when she fell apart again. So, it was just, back then, a lot of people didn't know. They just warehoused them and they would try this and they would try that. But they know so much more about it now, which makes sense to me how all
Yeah,
four of us came through, and we may have the gene, but we are not mentally ill right now.
right. Well, that's a good thing. I mean, my mother had some mental health issues, and so did my father. Both were caused by childhood trauma. So I kind of understand, um, even now, with it, it's trial and error based like on medication. I have
Yes.
a special needs son, and he's off all of his meds now. He's an adult, but as a kid, he was on so many. Um, and because he was bipolar and autistic, so it was trial and error with his meds. We'd send him to the hospital, he'd get new meds, he'd come home, and either he was fine or after a while, he would end up psychotic, so we'd have to send him back.
Yeah.
So, but even now, we don't have I hope we still don't have the electroshock treatment, but even with
Well,
medications and all the stuff they know today, each person is different. So
yes.
you don't know what's going to work until you try it. So,
You don't. You don't. And then after a while too, that med may not work anymore. I learned that with my mom. I had to get her on some new stuff. And you're right. Each person is different. Meds are different. She was doing great until I was going through a divorce, and that threw her in a non-safe place for her.
yeah,
And so, yeah. And again, there's so many triggers, your hormones. I learned so much about the trauma, your environment, your chemistry. I have a
yeah,
cousin who he had a hard trauma as a child too. His whole family did, but the difference is sometimes is like he started to do some drugs in college and that triggered it. It triggered it all.
wow,
And it's amazing the different drugs and your chemistry and the hormones and your environment, and just that gene is there. It is dormant, and sometimes it gets triggered, sometimes it doesn't. Like you
yeah,
said, a lot of people have that issue from PTSD from something, whether childhood trauma or they were in the military, you know.
yeah. My sons had to deal with the trauma. 20 years ago, my husband tried to kill me. So I have PTSD and some I have some physical issues, and they've gotten worse over the years, but my focus was on my kids and hoping, because their father, I believe, was bipolar, but he self-medicated by drinking too much, doing drugs, and that led him to wanting to kill his wife, the only person who actually loved him.
Yeah.
And that, I had to raise my three sons by myself, and it wasn't easy, but I did it, and they just wanted to be safe from their dad. He went to jail, and then after he got out of jail, he died. Um, but still, my boys could have used that as an excuse for bad behavior as an adult, but they didn't. They live wonderful lives. I'm very proud of all of them. So, and I do understand, because I mean, my dad had issues, my mother had issues, and now I have my dad. My mother passed away young, 44, and my dad's in end stage dementia. He's in a memory facility. So we just kind of knew that that was going to happen because he had a head trauma that was really bad as a kid. And when you don't know what's wrong with you and you just act certain ways, it's you try to figure out, okay, what's wrong with me and how can I feel better, you know? So sometimes people just they do the self medication, you know, they take
Yep.
drugs or and sometimes it's over the counter, sometimes prescription, but after a while it runs out and then you look for some other kind of outlet. But it sounds like where you and your siblings kind of were in survival mode, but then you got to a point where I'm hoping that all of your siblings, um, as well as yourself, are a point where you're not just surviving, you're actually living. Is that the case
Yeah.
for all of you? That's great.
You know, it is. We each did it differently. Like I had a couple, the two older, we all shoved it. We all shoved it deep.
Yeah,
There's no way. I was, I was just in the mindset, and same with my younger brother. Um, we've done this our whole life. I can handle whatever anyone throws at me, and I will survive this, and I will get through this. But once you constantly shove that down, it will eventually surface, and it
right,
has to be dealt with. And I think I hit such a dark place that I knew eventually I figured it out. I needed to figure it out, what happened to me, and to get it out of me. And as I did that, I am writing this, I included all my siblings, and I would call them all the time and ask them questions. Do you remember this? What about this? Because I was pretty little and through a lot of this. And my
right.
older brother was pretty traumatized because he was older, right? And he never would speak about it, ever. And as I brought it up, it started coming out, and I learned more about him. He learned more about me, and my sister would talk more, and my younger brother. And someone asked him once, my younger brother, he was a coach and an athletic director, and they said, "Coach, you never talk about your childhood or yourself." And he used the term that was in Few Good Men by Jack Nicholson in the courtroom. He said, "You don't want to know the truth. You couldn't handle the truth." And so I
Yeah,
use that in my talks before too, because the person who really can't handle the truth, we don't want to share it. We don't want people to see that because we worked so hard to get where we've gotten. We
right.
don't want people to see, "Oh, that's why you act like that. You're broken," or "This was in your life," or "No wonder you're weird. You know, you come from a
Yeah,
family of mental illness." And that's, I think, why a lot of us hit it, because we were proving to not only ourselves, but everyone else, we were strong. We got life, right?
yeah, exactly.
But we're all much better place now, and it's more open, and they can talk more. And my one brother's wife, she now understands a lot of things.
Well, that's good. That's really good.
It
And I'm
is.
glad that you guys were able to, this book you putting it together seemed to help you guys not just understand your childhood, but each of you had a different perspective because of your age
Yes.
and I'm sure the older ones probably remember more of stuff than maybe you or your younger brother do. You said you had an excerpt you wanted to read. You could
Oh,
do that now
sure.
if you wanted to.
Sure. I will read just a little bit of the preference, the
That's
beginning.
okay. No problem.
Okay. In the depths of our darkest nights, where shadows loom large and hope seems to dwindle, an unwavering beacon stands tall, and guides us back to the light. This is the story of my journey, a pilgrimage through the labyrinth of trials created by dire mental illness in my immediate family and the profound healing and transformation that emerged solely through my connection with Jesus Christ and his unwavering love. This book is not an ordinary memoir, but an intimate portrayal of resilience, faith, and the extraordinary power of divine love. I invite you to join me as we embark on a profoundly personal expedition that will hopefully lead you to the heart of what truly matters in life, the unconditional love of Christ and the power of the steadfast support of family. As I reflected upon the trials and tribulations that beset me, I recognized that my bond with Christ and my family helped me not only survive, but prosper amidst the tempestuous storms of my life. During the chaotic years of my childhood and youth, and my sometimes punishing journey to healing, I discovered the redeeming power of faith. No matter how dark my life became, at certain points, my faith illuminated my path with an unyielding hope that refused to be extinguished. When I became diligent in prayer, scripture, and a profound trust in God's divine plan, I began to witness glimmers of healing amidst the shattered fragments of my soul.
Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know the story starts out a little dark, but it does get to some fun stuff.
It's always good to add light to where there is darkness, because sometimes all we see is darkness. And even if there's just a little bit of light that we let in, sometimes we can find our way out.
Yes. We had, again, I had to lay the groundwork of where I felt that self-rejection started and where I felt I lived as a child. But there was also some really beautiful times. I mean, my older brother, he's the one that taught me how to ride a bike. And we lived in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, so tons of snow. And my older brother used to take us sledding down the hills and, things like that. And my cousin taught me how to tie my shoes. So we were real close with our cousins on my dad's side of the family. And we still are. Actually, we just 2 years ago maybe, we just had a huge family reunion as all my dad and his siblings have passed, but all of us kids, our kids and our
Right.
grandkids all got together.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure you had a great time.
Yes. It's a very, very strong family. And my cousin, one of my cousins, they have dealt with their brother. Like I said, he was very intelligent, very, smart, had a great life ahead of him. But again, his chemical, after doing some drugs kind of messed him up, and they have dealt with him and helped him and loved him through his bipolar for years. And he just turned 70. So,
Wow. Well, that's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
That is very wonderful. When
yeah.
people
Thank you.
can stop just surviving and actually live and enjoy what you have. I mean, I have issues, but like we all do, and some are deeper than others, but if I wake up in the morning, I'm extremely grateful that I just woke up.
I know. It's like you have another day. How can I make this day the best?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I remember going to see my husband and I divorced years ago, but I love his family. And that's kind of how I helped myself get through life was the boys in my life, the boyfriends and my husband, their family became my family, and
Mm-hmm.
they were wonderful families. And I was holding and rocking her. She was 98 years old. And it was time. It was time she went home
Yeah.
to be with the Lord. And I was sitting there rocking him, and just like a young child, I was holding her and rocking her and praying for God to take her home. But I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, she's this age and I'm this age. I better get going in life. I better start experiencing things and just making the most out of it, because most of my life I just did survival mode. And so it's time I live and live full. And I'm going to finish this race just doing it all out.
Oh, I get it. My grandmother, she died a couple of years ago, but she was 101, and the only reason she passed away at that age was because she had fallen, and she was on the floor for so long. She was 98 pounds soaking wet, so she said she woke up, she was fine. We talked on the phone when she was in the hospital. I made her laugh, and then she was only supposed to stay overnight, and the next morning I got a call that she was basically catatonic and she was dying because the proteins in her muscles, what was left of them, were breaking down and poisoning her system. But I went in and each day before she passed, I sat with her where people were sitting with her. I actually stood up and walked over and looked down at her in her eyes, and it was like she couldn't speak, but she was trying to communicate with me. Everyone, sitting down, just like sitting around her bed, and not that there was anything wrong with it, but I just had to get up and look in her eyes and tell her it was okay. And then she passed away on that July 4th, but I was just lucky that, I mean, I hated seeing her like that, but she knew who I was, even if it was just a glimpse in her eyes, she looking at me. I mean, we were best friends. I mean, she knew me my entire life, so we were always very close. And as we got older, or as she got older and I got older, it was more of a friendship, not just being her granddaughter. And it was one of the best relationships I've ever had.
Oh,
And that
that's
just
hard.
showed me, I mean, she lived 101. I mean, she had this thing, like, she was like, yeah, well, my brother died, or, not like nonchalant, but she was so used to, even though she would grieve inside, but all of her siblings died, her parents died, well, her parents died before her siblings all died. She was a middle child, and my aunt and uncle were taking care of her, but still, she loved to go out and sweep the needles off the front porch. And that was her thing. She couldn't do a lot, but she could still sweep. And as she got older, I think she got more of a better sense of humor as well, too. And I cherish that. And she would, I think just, she's still with me no matter what. And she makes me want to get up, as my kids do. Get out of bed, do something.
Yep. Got to have a purpose. And
Yeah.
her purpose was sweeping the needles. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And she would tell me about it, and then she's like, and then the wind would blow, and the leaves would go back down. She's like, why do we have to live under pine trees?
I
And
love
then she
that.
turned around and that they were so beautiful. But yeah, I mean, it was something. I
Yeah.
really want to thank you for being on the show, and you are welcome anytime to come back, because not just because that you're now a published author, but be, because you understand and you've gone through a lot, and there are still, even now, stigmas on people who have mental health issues.
For
Not
sure.
everybody understands. So I think sometimes as people with experience, that can, help shape the world in a different way. So
That's
thank
true.
you very much for being on my show.
Well, thank you for having me and sharing your story a little bit with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's the end of another great conversation. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you, audience, for listening. If you wish for you or your book to be on the show, just go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast and schedule your pre-recording. Please follow this podcast on Spotify. I'm Amy Shannon. Be safe, be well, and always be kind. Tune in here again next week for another tantalizing discussion. Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast.